Hello friends, myself Kishori Sharan. So today we are here to discuss Essay 230, that is audit documentation, an important topic for paper 5 audit and ethics for intermediate examination. So today our discussion will be primarily on Essay 230 and we will try to touch base some of the important concepts. However, would request if you have any questions, just let me know in between so that we can answer there and then only. And I would like to make this session as interactive as possible. So let us begin. So let us begin this session with a simple question. Let us suppose there's a person named Ria who is an auditor of an organization and he has just finished the audit of an organization and issued an audit report. And if someone asks Ria that how you have given that particular opinion on the financial statement, what are the processes that you have done, what are the analysis that you have done, what are the evidences that you have obtained, who has supervised the audit, what is the review mechanism. So what could be the Ria's answer? Just thought for a second that what could be your answer if you have been in a Ria's place. So the answer could be obviously the audit documentation. Ria can very well say that my opinion, my you can say whatever my opinion is based upon the evidences that I've collected during my audit exercise. So all those evidences means audit documentation. So as per SA 230, audit documentations deals with the auditor's responsibility to prepare audit documentation for an audit of financial statement, right? So let's move ahead. So, our discussion for today primarily revolves around the definition of audit documentation, the objectives, the purpose, the forms, the contents, the types and exclusions, and ownership. So, we will just try to touch base all these important concepts during our discussions. So, now let us move the first concept, that is, what is the definition of audit documentation? So, for the purpose of understanding the definition, I have just tried to break the audit documentation into two parts. First is the audit, and another is a document. So first, let us try to understand the meaning of document. So I'm for the purpose of meaning, I just try to understand the meaning of document from the Google. So as per the Google, document is something or a record that provides an evidence about a transaction, activity, or a decision. So let me give an example. For example, if you says that I am an income tax payee or I am an assessee, so how will you gonna prove that? So if somebody asks that you're an IT, if you're an income tax payee, what evidence that you have? Obviously, you have a PAN card. So PAN card is a document that is an evidence that you are a registered income tax payee. So that is a document that is an evidence that you are an income tax payee, right? And as you all know that what is audit? Audit is an independent examination. The definition that is given by the CA module, that it is an independent examination of books of accounts by an independent person, irrespective of its legal form, whether profit making or not, for expressing an opinion thereon. So this is the definition of an audit. So if I combine these two definitions, that is audit and documentation, so the definition which comes out to be for the audit documentation is audit documentation refers to the record of audit procedures performed, audit evidences obtained for the purpose of conclusions. That means audit documentation is the combination of records of the audit processes, the audit evidences obtained for giving the conclusions on an audit report or the financial statements of the company. So these three keywords that I'm highlighting, that is record, sorry, that is record, that is evidence, and that conclusions have to be mentioned if in the examination somebody is asking you the definition of audit documentation. So these three keywords, that is the record, the audit evidences, and the conclusions, have to be remembered and have to be written, right? So these are the three keywords. So now moving on to the next concept, that what are the key objectives? So key objectives of audit documentation is that auditor is to prepare the documentation that provides sufficient and appropriate record of the basis of auditor's report and evidence that an audit was planned and performed in accordance with the applicable rules and regulations. So let us try to understand this with an example. So in our earlier example, wherein Ria was an auditor, let us suppose if Ria says that I have done the audit of particular receivables. He said that I have checked the invoices, I have checked the accounting entry, I have checked the bank payment, and I have checked the respective contracts. Is that sufficient for us? Obviously not. That is not sufficient because Ria has just checked, but he has not documented or he has not taken any documents from the client evidencing that she has done the audit. So till the time it is documented, it is not done. In the audit field, we normally say is not documented, not done. That means till the time we document a particular process or an activity, we can't say that it has been done. So for the purpose of Ria to mention that I have completed the audit, she has to take all those evidences or all those supportings to support that she has done a particular activity or she has done the audit of a particular area. So she can take probably the copy of invoices that she have checked or she have verified, or she can take the copies of the contracts or the summary of the contracts, or she can take the sample of the bank statements from where she has traced the bank payments. So obviously, till the time she has taken all those evidences in place, we can't say that she has documented all those things. So that is what is key objective audit documentation, that we have to have the sufficient appropriate record of all the procedures that we have performed and evidence that these procedures have been performed as per the applicable legal requirements of the essays and as per applicable legal requirements. So this is what which is there written in the essay 230. So hope this is clear, right? Now moving on to the next concept, what is the purpose of audit documentation, right? So purpose of audit documentation means that why we are doing the audit documentation. Obviously, you can say that we have already discussed, but yes, we have already discussed. But yes, the purpose of audit documentation is to plan the audit, to supervise and review the audit, the accountability, retaining the records, quality control, and inspection. So, in an unlikely situation, wherever any inspection is being imposed on auditor, then auditor can very well show that the basis those documentations that she can or she or he has given the opinion. So that is very important. So now you will say that there are six steps. So how will I going to remember all those six steps in a sequence? So I'll just give you a small, you can say an example or a trick to remember all these seven steps. Imagine from a Bollywood style, there are two characters, Prem and Anjali. Prem, like you all know, Shah Rukh Khan's pet name, Prem, and Anjali is like you can take Kajol or Rani Mukherjee, whatever. So this is how I learn. Probably you can take another method as well, but I learn it as that Prem stands for P, reviews are Prem reviews Anjali for future quality and inspection, right? So PRAFQI. So this is the way how I remembers it. Yes, Prem review Anjali for future quality and inspection, right? So these are the some of the tricks by which you can remember these keywords, so that if you remember these keywords now, then you will be able to produce basis these keywords in the examination and get good marks. Because obviously while examining, or the examiner is looking all those three keywords, so you have to remember all these three keywords, right? So for your, if you want to note, you can just note down Prem review Anjali for future quality and inspection, right? So this is what how I remembers it, right? So these are the purpose of audit documentation. I'm not just getting into it, because if you go through once, you can easily remember that it is just for the sake of that, to plan the audit, to supervise the audit, to for the purpose of retaining the records, for quality control, and for inspection, right? So now moving on to the another important thing, which is the form, content, and extent of our documentation. So there's a normal question or general question which everybody asks, that you are saying that we have to do documentation for each and every activity, for each and every process that we do during the audit. So what is the extent? How many documents we need to collect? In how much depth that we need to go? And in how much, you can say, what is the quantum of those documentation that we need to collect? So this depends upon number of the factors. So all these factors have been collated here. So these factors could be the size and complexity of the entity, the nature of auditor procedures to be performed, the risk in the entity, the significance of audit evidence obtained, the nature of extent and exceptions identified, the audit methodology and tools used. So in a nutshell, we have to understand that the what is the nature of entity, whether entity is like it's a plain easy audit, or it's a complex audit. For an example, the audit of a service industry, I think is a bit easier than an audit of a manufacturing industry. So we have to, obviously, the processes that we are following in the service industry can't be following or can't be followed in the process in the audit of a manufacturing industry. So we have to accordingly change our processes, change our evidences, change our materiality, basis the extent and basis nature of the industry. So that depends upon the industry to industry, the client to client, and to audit. So all these factors have to be identified and has to be considered while deciding upon the form, content, and extent of the audit documentation. So in a nutshell, for you, for the sake of understanding you, I mean to say that if audit is easy, then you can say probably take less evidences, and if the audit is difficult, complexity is involved, and audit is a bit, you can say, complex in nature, then obviously you need to go into the depth. You need to collect more evidences, and you need to have a properly documented for all the activities that you have performed in relation to a particular area or a particular activity that needs to be performed. Right? Hope this is clear. Now, till now, we have discussed that audit documentation we have to collect, we have to like document it, and we have to like review it, we have to supervise it, whatever. So the question is, what all things are included in audit documentation? So we have understood what audit documentation is, but what are the types of audit documentation? So audit documentation could be the audit programs that we prepare, the various analysis that we have done or that we will be doing during the audit exercise, the various memorandums or the communication that we do with the management, the various letter of confirmations that we issue to the management, the summaries of the significant matters. Summaries could be that we usually, as an auditor, prepare the summaries of the various contracts with the agreements, because it is not possible to see all the contracts during time of the review. So we can prepare the summaries in the form of like take the important points from the n number of pages and the checklist and all. So these are the examples of the audit documentation. And one thing I want to emphasize here is that audit documentation can be on a paper, can be in electronic form or any other media. It is not necessarily to be on a paper. Hence, so this is one of the important one that also we need to be consider. The audit documentation could be in a hard copy, could be in a soft copy, or could be in a form of any other media, right? So these are the primarily types of the audit documentation, and one can include other types as well. So this is not an exhaustive list; it is an inclusive list, right? So now, moving on to the next point, that is, we have discussed what all is included in audit documentation. Now, question arises, what is not included in audit documentation? And this is, I think, one of the important concepts, because in the past question papers, I have seen that this has been specifically asked in the examination. So now what is not included in audit documentation is the superseded drafts of the financial statements. So what is that? So for an example, if we have prepared a draft of financial statements and during the review, we have observed that there are certain mistakes or it needs to be changed or it needs to be formatted. So let us suppose that is version 1 and we made some changes, that becomes version 2. And again, after reviewing, it becomes version 3. It becomes version 4 basis the reviews of the seniors or basis the reviews of the partner. So all those versions that we need not to keep, we can just keep the last reviewed version. So that is what all the superseded version of the financial statements need not to be kept as an audit documentation. But yes, for the sake of simplicity or for our record's sake, we can take that. But yes, that is not included in the audit documentation list. Now, another thing is that the previous copies of the documents corrected typographical and other errors. This is also somewhat related to the previous point. That means if there is a typographical error or any formatting changes that we are doing the financial statements or in any other working papers, so that also should not be included. And also the duplicate documents or any other contracts or any other papers or any other evidences that we have taken from the client, so they all not be included in the audit documentation. So in a nutshell, audit documentation includes the final working papers of the auditors, which shows that how he has arrived at a particular opinion, or how he has arrived, or how he has given that financials shows a true and fair view of the financial aspects of the company, right? So now, another important aspect is the timely preparation. Now, question arises that by when we should prepare the audit documentation. Let us understand with the help of an example. Let us suppose Ria is doing the audit and he is just sitting with the clients and he is just discussing the various activities, the audit processes, right? And at the end of the day, she said that I'll do the documentation after 5 days or at the end of the audit. So, in your opinion, is that correct? No, absolutely, this is not correct, because it may be possible that after a week or 10 days or 2 days, in fact, Ria will not be remember the key critical points that she has discussed, or she may omit, or she may like not remember those points while documenting. And hence, it may be possible that the important points may be missed to be documented, and which in turn impact the overall quality and overall effectiveness of the audit. And hence, it is always advisable to prepare the audit documentation side by side, or in fact simultaneously during the audit, and rather not to postpone it at a later stage, because it will impact the credibility of the auditor, it will impact the quality of the audit, and it will impact the reliability of the auditor's report. And hence it is always advisable to prepare the audit documentation side by side during the audit. Now, coming on to the next concept is, what is audit file? So audit file, as you all know, is a combination or is a collection of all the evidences that we have collected from during the audit from the client. So imagine audit file as a complete story of an audit which is being organized, managed, and preserved for the future references, right? So imagine you have a file wherein you have like annexed or collated so much of document in relation to your studies or in relation to your career. So in the similar fashion, this is audit file which contains all the evidences or all the documents that we have obtained. And again, this could be in this hard form, or it could be in the physical form. There's no hard and fast rule, but yes, it has to be maintained properly. It has to be preserved for the years to come. I will also come on to the point wherein for how long that it has to be preserved, which is specified by the law, right? So this is the audit file, and it has to be in soft copy, hard copy that we have already discussed. Now, moving on to the next point is that assembly of the final audit file. So likewise, for an audit, we have taken say 15 days to complete, right? We have collated the audit file, we have documented all the evidences that we have obtained, and we have made a final audit file. So that audit file has to be completed in all the respects. But yes, there is a timeline which has to be, which is there in the law, which within which it has to be completed. So assembly or the audit file has to be completed within 60 days from the date of signing of the auditor's report. So why I'm stressing 60 days is that this is a 60 days which is specified by the law, right? So it has to be completed within 60 days, and also assembly has to be completed within those 60 days. An auditor is not required to perform the new processes. He can just discuss the processes if any need may arise with the client in respect of the previous activities that he has performed. But no new audit process, no new audit activity has to be performed within those 60 days. Those 60 days are only for the purpose of making an audit file so that it can be preserved, it can be managed in a proper manner. So that is the importance of making an audit file in a chronological order, in a proper manner. So imagine, as I mentioned, a complete story of an audit in a proper file that is known as audit file, and that is purely for administrative purposes only. And there is no new activity can be performed during these 60 days. So one has to be very cautious and one has to be very careful, right? So now moving on to the next slide or next particular point is, who owns this audit documentation, right? See, during the, say, as for an example, we take the RIA again for our discussions. For example, RIA has like collected the audit evidences during the discussions, and he has prepared the audit file, properly documented, properly preserved. Now, next question arises that who owns this audit documentation? Obviously, the audit documentation is a property of the auditor and is also specified by the SQC1, that is Standard and Quality Control. Audit documentation is a property of auditor, but yes, auditor may, at the specific request of the client, may give or may take some of the copies from the client that he may ask for, right? So auditor may, as I'm just reading out the language of the law, which is that the auditor may, at the discretion, make portions or the extracts of the audit documentation available to the clients if clients request so. That means auditor can give the documentation to the client if he may. That is, there is no hard and fast rule on the part of the auditor that he has to give, right? So this is as specified by the SQC1 and also as by SA 230, that is audit documentation. So these are the important point in respect to audit documentation, and in fact I'm sure that how audit documentation is important you must have now understood, because I just want to emphasize one more point here, that the importance of audit documentation. So in an unlikely situation where any inspection is being ordered on the audit of a particular financial statement which RIA has audited, then this is audit documentation which like probably acts as a shield for him to produce before the authorities, yes, to say that yes, basis on these documentations, I have given the opinion, right? So one can imagine that how audit documentation is important. So with that, I end up my discussion. I hope I'm adding value to your overall preparation of the audit documentation topic. Thanks again. Thank you.